What is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of The Rose Show. As always, I'm your host, Jay. Who else but me? And today I've got two returning guests to the show. It is Chelsea Conner and Molly Gruesome. Very happy to have both of them back onto the show. One of my two of my favorite episodes were with Molly and Chelsea, just because I felt like they were so unique, I guess is the best way to put it. Being able to have discussions with people who have lived a different walk of life than me, obviously the whole different gender thing, but not only that, to get a perspective from people who are in industries that one that I'm familiar with, one being Molly in the music industry, and the other one being Chelsea, one I'm just a fan of, and getting their perspective on what it's like, being a woman in male dominated industry. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this. I sat down with them, and before we hit record, I ended up saying, like, look, guys, I don't really know how this is going to go. But you guys both just kind of, made references to some things in the episodes that we did together. So I thought, hey, why not sit all three of us down and have a conversation? And I think it turned out really well. And I think anybody that watches, as long as they watch with an open mind and realize that obviously this is a non-political show and I've got no reason to push any kind of political agenda against you guys. It's just, hey, these are real things that happened, and I feel like it's my responsibility as somebody that I guess you could call a form of media to highlight these things, especially when I find them important myself. So, I think everybody that watches this is really going to enjoy it. Great conversation, and as long as you go in with an open mind and realize we're not looking to attack anybody, you're just talking about situations, you're going to enjoy it too, I think. So, anyway, let's go ahead and get to the nitty gritty. Before we get started, make sure you join my Patreon. That's 100% free at www.patreon.com/theroseshowpod. Still aiming to do some more stuff over there, as far as like giveaways and stuff like that. Hopefully by about, springtime, I've got a couple of things stacked up. We'll start giving away for 100% free to everybody who's a member over there. You get all of the announcements for all of the guests before anyone else over on Patreon. So that is an automatic thing you get. If you're a fan of the show and you can't wait to find out who's coming up next, by all means, join my Patreon, because you're going to find out before anyone else. So go ahead and head over there, click join. It supports the show. And wherever you're watching and listening to this on, please make sure you like and subscribe, because again, that helps me grow as well. Every time you do that, every time you press like, every time you leave a comment, every time you subscribe, you help me get that much closer to my goal. So something that's real minuscule to you is huge to me. So please hook your boy up and do that. Anyway, enough of my babbling. Let's go ahead and hear a word from my sponsors, and then my interview with my two friends, Chelsea Conner and Molly Gruesome. Here we go, y'all. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Jay, and I'm here for W Energy, my sponsors. Now, what is W Energy, you might ask? W Energy is clean, jitterless energy. Better than the canned stuff that you would get at your convenience stores, your gas stations, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have all that trash in it. Now, how do I know? Because I myself use W Energy. So what I've got here, a couple of limited edition flavors. For instance, W Energy puts out this stuff called Grandpa's Ginger Water. I know it don't sound that great, but it is amazing. Limited run that they came out that I've got actually multiple tubs of. I believe in W Energy. I use W Energy myself. Also, this was just released, and it's another limited edition flavor that they come out with, and it's called Pom Blom. It's pomegranate blossom. Real nice, clean flavor. And a lot of W Energy, whether it be classics like Calio Cream or the Dub Sludge, whatever it might be, it is clean energy. It's not going to make you feel all crappy at the end of the day after using it. Now, here's what I want you to do, because again, they're obviously a sponsor of mine. But what I want you to do is I want you to go to www.w.gg, order one of the sampler packs, which you get one of these cool tumblers, a part of the sampler pack. And I want you to grab one, but don't use my promo code. That's right. Don't use my promo code who else at checkout, because I want you to try it without thinking I'm just trying to sell you a bill of goods. Try it one time, and then when you go back to buy your second order of W Energy, then use my promo code who else at checkout for a 10% discount, because all you're going to do is try it. I know you're going to love it. That's how much I believe in this product, and I thank them for sponsoring the show today. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of The Rose Show. As always, I'm your host, Jay. Who else but me? And today I have got two guests with me who are returning for season two. Actually, it was crazy as I've had both these two on within the last year, and the fact that it's been a year since I talked to Molly when we first recorded our episode. Actually, around the time we're recording it right now, it was a year ago, which is insane to think about. If there's anything that our parents' generation told us that still to this day holds true is the older you get, the fucking faster time goes. So the fact that it was a year ago that we first talked is insane to me, but that's neither here or there. Molly was on all the way back on episode 5, and by the time she was going by Gru, now she switched back to the name Molly Gruesome. And also, Chelsea was with me on episode 27 all the way back last July. So it is awesome to have them both here, and we'll get into the subject matter here in a second. But let's go ahead and go on the room. We'll start in the upper left-hand corner. Chelsea, go ahead and shout out to the audience and let us know who you are and why you are here.
Hey guys, my name's Chelsea Conner. I'm a professional MMA fighter. I've been fighting for almost 15 years now, and today we're going to talk about the funness of being a female in a male dominant world sport, whatever you want to call it.
Molly, how about you?
Oh, it's good. I go by Molly Gruesome. I'm a rapper slash entertainer. And yeah, we're here to talk about this. We have that in common. We're both in a very male dominated field. So I'm interested to get into this. We got into it a little bit during the first interview that we had together, Jay. Uh, so yeah, now we're just gonna kind of flesh that out a little bit more. So.
Absolutely. And to be clear, anybody that's watched any of the 50 plus episodes that I put out to date know I am not a politically driven person. I never have been, and if you know me personally, you know I've never have been, and I never will be. And I highlight that because I feel like a lot of the issues that are brought up in today's world usually have I guess, a hidden agenda behind them when people bring up issues like what we're going to talk about today. And the reason why I felt like I should platform this, especially with you guys, because as Molly said, both Molly and Chelsea, we both had discussions about how the challenges that women have had in male-dominated industries. I want to talk about this because anybody that watches my show knows that there's no hidden political agenda behind anything that I do. I'm not a political person. Well, that's not true. I am a political person, but I don't use my platform to push that agenda. This is purely because I have been around. And for those who are watching who don't know my background, I've been on multiple national tours with bands like Twisted and Young Wicked and multiple underground acts. And I've seen the other side. The other side is ugly, especially for women. And I've always wanted to have the opportunity to talk about stuff like this on a platform I could produce because it's a real problem. And again, I'm bringing this up not because it's politically motivated, it's because this shit happens. And this isn't an attack on men. By far, it's not an attack on men, but I've seen some sleazeball shit. I've been in a green room before where I was instructed to keep doors open just in case women would walk by and one of them wanted to give him a blowjob. I'm not going to say who that person was. They're in the industry still to this day, but I see stuff like that, and it infuriates me. And I think a lot of it is because I was raised by women. Um, and I saw some of the stuff that my two sisters and my mom had to go through with scumbag men, and I just can't stand scumbags in general. That's not a gender specific thing. If you're a scumbag, you're a scumbag. But
It's just
but but the fact that I've experienced some of the things that I have and I've witnessed some of the stuff that I've seen, I just feel like it's important to highlight some of this stuff. So we're just going to have a conversation. And I felt like I had to throw that disclaimer in there before we got started. So, again, Chelsea, when we were talking with you all the way back on episode 27, you had made mention before about some of the challenges being in, because again, MMA until actually probably like what, the last decade, MMA was a mainly male dominated sport. UFC didn't feature women. It wasn't until Strikeforce came along where UFC really started pushing or I'm sorry, when MMA started pushing women's fighting. So this is all a very brand new thing. So I kind of want to kick it over to you to begin with and talk about some of the challenges that you've seen just in your time in being a fighter.
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge that women deal with is like making sure that they're staying kind of modest in the sport, instead of I see a lot of females come into like training sessions and they're half dressed, to go to the gym, and it's like, you're kind of objectifying yourself right off the bat. If you don't want to be looked at as a sexual object, put clothes on. It's kind of that simple. And have respect for yourself. Don't go into a gym trying to look up or look to hook up with someone, things like that, I think can really deter the whole situation from the get-go. We definitely have made progress in MMA for women, to be able to be looked at as a, I guess, equal to our counterparts, which I'm no way, shape, or form saying men and women are equal, because we are both very different. And that's something that I think needs to be talked about more, is how we need each other, but there needs to be a balance, and there has to be that respect there of like, this is what women can do, this is what men can do, and if we can just balance it out, it can really all work in unison and be awesome. But if I have an ego trip and my male training partner has an ego trip, we ain't going to be able to balance each other out. So it's really trying to find that balance. And honestly, I um didn't even figure that out like through the MMA side. I figured that out being a wife and a mother, like understanding like, hey, if I'm trying to get what I want and need as a female, I need to act in a certain way. And it's just learning that over time and trying to figure out, that good balance to be able to work together instead of against each other.
Sure. And this is kind of one of the reasons why I wanted Molly involved in this specifically, because when you go to our side of the things, the underground side of the scene, um, the music side of what we're talking about here today, what we are involved in, being promiscuous, I guess for a lack of better words, with your imagery is actually part of the job. And that's kind of what you were saying. When you go to the gym, Chelsea, when you go to the gym, there's a certain professionalism you expect. On the other side, where me and Molly come from, it's no big deal for us to go to the gathering and see women going topless and stuff like
Yeah.
that, because that's a part of the scene. Time and place. That's the point
Right.
that you're making. There is the fact that when you're going to the gym to train, it's not
Yeah.
time for your OnlyFans shoot. But when it's
Yeah.
time, go like we're talking about with Molly, and I kind of want to kick it over to you here. Do you find, and this might be a little bit of an obvious question, do you find using sex appeal in music, because that is something that is very prominent in our scene? Do you find that sometimes people think that that's an invitation, or what's some of the experiences you've dealt with that?
Um, yeah, like it is kind of part of the imagery. Again, like I say, I'm an entertainer because being a hip hop artist or music artist, you are creating kind of a persona and an image, um, and you obviously, like, to a certain extent, want an image that people like. I do think that sex appeal definitely w- uh, definitely plays a factor, when it comes to music and hip hop, and being kind of sexy is like what people like kind of generate towards.
Sure.
So it's a bit of a different game because I mean when you're talking MMA, that's it's your physical abilities, and that's what you're bringing to the game. And with entertainment, you're bringing the image. So I
Right.
definitely think that the sex appeal comes into it quite a lot, and it can work for or against you. You have the image, and people see like a hot chick in skimpy clothes, and it's sexy, and they're like, I want to be her, I want to be around that, like, and that's something that draws people to you. But it can give the impression that you are a certain kind of girl, I guess, which isn't necessarily true. Like the persona that you put on as an artist is not who you are when you step off that stage and you're just a normal human being. You know, it would be like an actress going and acting and being a person in the movie, and maybe she's sleeping with people in the movie. You're still a human being when you get off of that like off the screen is off, the camera's off. You're a person, and that's your job. It's your job to be that image. It's your job to put that sex appeal out there. And sometimes people can't differentiate that from who you are when the camera's off, and treat you like a normal coworker when that image is not, you know, being perpetuated, I guess. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. If you don't have any sex appeal, that definitely, I think it's something that hurts artists, and people expect female artists to be sexy, entertainment artists to be sexy. Um, so you kind of want a bit of that, but again, like I said, you know, it definitely gives people the idea, a certain idea about who or what you are, and they may think that that gives them leeway to treat you a certain way. So, you know, it's hard to say. I definitely think the best thing to do is just be yourself as much as you can. Um, and obviously, like, rap is exaggerated, and the image is exaggerated, but keeping to kind of who you are and what your values are, and um, is the easiest thing to do, because then people don't kind of expect something different when you're not on, when you don't have the face on. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that I always say is because it seems like, especially when it comes to underground music, a lot of the fans like take the imagery and the lyrics a little bit too serious. And there's times where I got to tell people like, "Hey, you realize Insane Clown Posse are not really two psychopathic clowns. You know that, right? Like you there's times there's just I don't know what it is too. And I've had discussions with people that are fans of the scene. I've been on features on shows where I tell stories that I find to be horror stories, and the people I'm talking to start laughing, and it's like, what the fuck are you laughing at? Like this is, you're wiling out listening to this music and getting involved with this imagery, thinking this shit's real. That none of this is real. So it definitely speaks to what you're saying as far as the imagery of putting yourself out there like that. I've seen. Oh God, I'm starting to hate myself for even talking about this right now. But I've seen being a security guard at this place called Odd Bodies in Dayton, Ohio. I've seen guys in the crowd reach up and try to grab, and it's one of those things, and it's just like, what makes you think you have the right to do that? And
Yeah.
that's again, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this discussion today and get the other side from your guys' vantage point, because me being, the position that I'm in, I just look at some of these people, just go, what the fuck are you doing to these? These are humans. You understand that? And Chelsea, I kind of want to kick it over to you, because there seems, and you could correct me if I'm off base here, but there seems like there's more of an opportunity for guys in general to take advantage of getting a little handsy when you're training with women. And that's not any, I don't have any examples. I have no proof of accusations or nothing like that. I just think about what that kind of a training would entail. And my first thought would be some scumbag out there has tried to take advantage of that situation. Am I accurate? Have you heard any stories, or have you experienced anything like that before?
Um, so I myself have never experienced anything like that. And it's kind of like this is what kind of makes it fun for me in ways, is because like typically when you're in a gym setting, if you touch me in a wrong way, I can punch you right in the mouth. And then it's kind of like, oh shit, maybe
Right.
I shouldn't do that. Like and there's no consequences that I get, by punching you in the
Right.
face because you touch me in an inappropriate manner. So I think as long as you present yourself in that manner of like, hey, this is no like nonsense. I've honestly had that happen more with females than I have men. Like
Whoa.
men, yeah. Yeah, I've had two
Interesting.
females, honestly. One got way inappropriate, and I just stopped training with her. It was that, it, like, that was the end of it. And then another one who was a lesbian, just kept on making very inappropriate comments. And I'm like, like, maybe this just isn't the sport for you. If you can't, most people, when they come into an MMA gym, they can, like, understand, like, this isn't a sexual thing. This is a life or death type thing. Like, we're training you to understand how to protect yourself, or fight if you want to fight, So typically we don't deal with that a whole lot. But I do try to tell, most women that do come into the gym, hey, be mindful of, like, what you have on, because if you do have a sports bra on, just a sports bra on, when you're grappling with a guy, like, and they're grabbing for an underhook and they grab your boob, like, that's not really the dude's fault. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing, And
Right.
I think also it helps having a good coach to be able to, like, break the ice there of, like, hey, we got girls in the room, you know treat them like females, understand, like, they're trying to get somewhere with their training as well. You need to be respectful and mindful, don't be a fucking weirdo. Like, and it's usually pretty simple. Yeah, like I said, I've never had a guy, like, try and be funny about anything. It's more like, honestly, females. And that was one thing that I wanted to say when you were talking about, like, the crowd and, like, reaching up to try and cop a feel. Like, that is a male doing that to a female, but how many females do we see try and do that to men too? And then,
That's a
like,
good
it's
point. That's a
okay.
good
It's
point.
okay and
Yeah.
Yeah.
acceptable for a female to do it. If I'm grappling with a guy and
Right.
I grab their junk, like, it's okay. Like, why is that okay, but it's not okay for the other person, like a man to do it, So I don't know, like, it makes my head spin a lot of the times when I think about this, because it's like it feels like such a double standard.
Yeah.
So I don't
There-
know.
there's got to be there's got to be just a level that we can all be at
Mhm.
where
Yeah,
we're
Yeah.
just just
yeah,
people doing
that
something
balance.
together. That Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
balance it. Yeah.
Yeah. And just so you know, I'm using the "I can punch you in the face" as the clip to promote this episode. I just want you
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
to know. but
That's
but
good.
no, I mean that also that goes back to what I was saying in the intro of this. Like, this isn't an attack on men. And
Absolutely
I'm
not.
so glad that you
Right.
brought this up, because
Yeah.
there are, going back to where me and Molly come from, alcohol is prevalent in the
Mhm.
environment in which we work. In music, whether you're at a bar, whether you're at a festival, wherever you're playing a venue, wherever you're playing these music, alcohol is everywhere. And that's just alcohol. That's not the other drugs that may or may not
Right.
be in the vicinity. Um, and I've always, oh God, I might cut this out. I don't know. But I've always said that every woman has a little bit of lesbian in them. It's just activated by alcohol. Because for some reason, when most women, when most women start drinking alcohol, they become really feely with other women. But I have seen at venues, people get uncomfortable by that one person, and we all know exactly what I'm talking about. That one person that gets a little bit too drunk and then wants to hang on everybody, women or not, anybody at all, and get a little too feelsy. I've seen women themselves, again, to Chelsea's point. I've seen women just decide, hey, I'm a woman, I'm hot, I can go on stage and start dancing. No, no, you cannot. There
Yeah.
has to be that boundary. And
Yeah.
another thing, Molly, I kind of wanted to talk to you about this, because when I do see things that are questionable, or used to when I was in the music industry, it would always be in the green room vicinity. Always be backstage. There would be somebody who, uh, a little, how, I don't want to say a little too flirty, but wanted to be the flirt in the environment, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If anything, I find it amusing. I've never indulged myself, but I find it amusing watching other people try to. But it feels like there is a, for lack of better words, unwritten rule that if you're a woman in a green room, somehow you're fair game. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if it was the misconception that green rooms mean parties. I have very rarely been in a green room where the entire thing was a fucking party. It's normally just people sitting on couches and checking their phones. But for some reason, while the show's going and alcohol starts going on, if there's any women in the green room, seems like it's people think it's fair game for anybody who's back there. I kind of want to see if maybe there's anything that you can speak of on that, because that's just me as an observer. I've never obviously had to experience anything like that or deal with it. Do you find that to be the case where sometimes people are a little bit too lax in a green room environment?
Uh, yeah, I don't generally hang out backstage. I don't go on to tour buses. I
Yeah,
don't because that is it is kind of a thing most most of the time. And if you're opening for artists, like, they don't necessarily know who you are. And to them, you're just another chick backstage, and that's the assumption, is that
yeah,
you're back there because you're one of those women. Um, so it's kind of one of those things I just kind of try to avoid that situation altogether. Um, and it's weird because a lot of music is networking. It's you meet other artists, you got like have a friendship or strike up, and okay, so oh, now we're gonna go on tour together, or we're gonna do a song together, or we're gonna like networking is a really big part of it. And I feel like that's one extreme disadvantage that women have in this industry is networking is a little bit more difficult, because a lot of the time the assumption is that if you want to hang out, or if you want to be involved somehow, that it's more than just an artist working with another artist. A lot of the time artists will get the impression that you're looking for something else, or they're looking for something else, and they use working together as an excuse to get together. um which is really annoying. So I think it puts you at a disadvantage, because you don't get that sometimes the like natural friendship that men have, or
yeah,
camaraderie, or whatever else. I think you kind of miss out on that as a woman a lot, especially being the only woman the only woman at the show, or the only woman at all the shows, or like most of the time I'm the only one. So I don't have a lot of other making like female friends that are also in the industry, that can also put me onto a tour, or that own venues or run venues. Like, most of the time, from going up, it's not just the artists that are all male. It's the engineers and the sound guys
yeah,
and the promoters and the tour, like, so you have all these people that it can be harder to make a connection with because of that. And not all. And 100% with you that this is not an attack on men. Like, we're not doing this episode because men are bad and they're all assholes. Like, no, it's just it is different
yeah.
being a woman in a completely male dominated field. It is different. And if you say that it's not, then I think that's like wishful thinking, I guess. Because there just are aspects that are different in that sense. So yes, like
Yeah.
green rooms and stuff like that, generally avoid, because a lot of the times the only women that a lot of these guys encounter are the fans that are like
Yeah.
women that are into it, and they don't always approach you as a coworker kind of deal.
Yeah.
So it's different.
Yeah. And I've always been careful, especially when doing this. Like, I've tried to no avail. I shouldn't say to no avail. I've had one modeling group on here so far, but I'm usually real careful about getting a hold of models, because I don't want them to think, for what you just said, like I'm trying to get this person on my show so I can try to sleep with them. And unfortunately, with these days, me showing them my wedding ring, that doesn't mean a whole lot. A lot of people still don't, even take that seriously. So it's like I contact them twice. Matter of fact, I have met both of you in real life. at least once, both of you guys. The first time, Molly, I met you was at the gathering after what was your retirement set, which is now null and void, luckily. But even trying to approach you with the album that I had you sign, like I had to fight myself to do it, not because I was scared, not because I was nervous, because I'm like, I just don't want to. I don't want to give off that impression like I'm trying to hit on you or something like that. Chelsea, when I met you over last summer, when I saw you at that carnival, I approached you with a handshake. Now you shook my hand, but then gave me a hug, which I
Yeah.
reciprocated. But I didn't want to start with a hug. If you were a
Right.
male, I probably would have, but not a female. Why? Because I don't want to get off that impression. So
Right.
your guys' challenge, and not saying it's your specific fault, but your guys is what you guys have to deal with has made me insecure in how I approach things because I
Yeah.
don't want you to get that impression that I'm trying to overstep those boundaries. Why? Because I see habitual line steppers do that fucking constantly. And
Mhm.
I don't understand why there's that level of comfortability. And as Molly just pointed out, and as Chelsea reiterated, it's obviously not a gender thing.
Right.
Obviously, it's men and women who are doing this. So, you're not only men don't have to deal with the challenges of being in a male dominated industry, but women have to deal with that kind of challenges from both men and women, which is insane to me. You have it coming both ways. So, Chelsea, I kind of want to get your opinion on this because you obviously said nobody's taking advantage of you. But in the same aspect of what Molly was just talking about, when it comes to the business and trying to work your way into there, which obviously you're a headliner here where we are locally, but you had to obviously work your way up to get to that point. Did you find it was hard to kind of kick that door down, like Molly was just referring to in her scene?
1000%. The hardest thing is staying modest. Like I said in the beginning of like it I could have surpass myself 10 times over had I just taken my clothes off. Had I just,
Yeah,
slept with, certain promoters, certain, training partners, and just, was scandalous about things. I could have been way further along than what I am now. So yeah, it's really difficult to keep those like morals to yourself when you're seeing all these other girls that you're better than, like make it before you
right,
do. And it's like what's the difference? Oh, they got a boob job. Oh, they danced on a pole. Oh, they did all these things. They were sleeping with so and so, and it's like shit, man, like that sucks because I could do that. I could, but my the respect that I have for myself won't allow me to do it. So it's one of those things that does make it tough to not just be a sellout and, get that quick paycheck or whatever you want to call it, the quick stardom. But I also know like how much I mean to my daughter, and what
right,
example I'm making for her, and all the other young girls that look up to me, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna keep on grinding and do what I do. And if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I'm okay with that. I know deep down I didn't sell myself out and I respected myself the entire time. So it's just something I have to learn to be okay with.
And I think that's exactly the same thing in the music industry, and being a woman in the music industry too is yeah, uh, you can have those opportunities to
Yeah.
move up in that sense. And there's definitely been offers. Had I accepted, I think I might be in a different position. It could be on this label or that label, if you want to be that kind of girl. Um, in the short term, women can get ahead in that way if that's how they decide to do it. But in the long term, I think it really hurts them. I think because when people know that that's how you got where you got,
Mhm.
they really don't respect you. They don't respect anything that you've done, even if anything that you did was by your own merits. They're gonna look at the fact
right.
that you were
Mhm.
with so and so,
Yep.
and that's why you're famous, or that's why. and that's why you are where you are, and they're not going to respect anything that you've done on your own.
And
And that's
not to
something.
cut you off, not to cut you off, Molly, but you also said during our episode that even the opposite reaction happened to where somebody approached you and then they wouldn't work with you, not just pass you up, but they wouldn't work with you because you said no, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I've experienced that as well. Like it guys will get their feelings hurt if they're rejected, and then that means that any opportunities I might have had are gone because somebody's just, hurt that they didn't get what they wanted, or maybe that was all they wanted in the first place. They didn't actually like my music, or didn't actually want to work with me. That was, you had an ulterior motive. But yeah, and then, when that kind of situation comes up too, there's somebody that I'm not going to want to work with if it's going to be kind of weird, or there's going to be different intentions going on. So that cuts off some possibilities and opportunities and moving up that I think other like men definitely don't have to deal with. You definitely don't have to worry about like hurting anyone's feelings,
Yeah.
or or like, and it's weird, and it's unfortunate, but that does kind of happen. It's people just sadly, that can be something that goes on. So you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, and in some of those situations. But you do find the good people in the industry, and you do find the people that show respect, and those are the people you end up working with and wanting to work with. And there's definitely a lot of those in the industry too. Like there have been amazing people that I've worked with that have never ever put anything on the table like that, and have just like treated me like a coworker, which is awesome. So that's it's a something you got to look out for, uh, being a woman in the industry. But you will find gems. You will find good people, and you'll find people that want to see you succeed, and not have a kind of hidden agenda. But
Yeah, sure. So Chelsea, again, it women's MMA is more recent than not. Um, do you find that the attitude towards women's MMA is starting to change a little bit more? Because like even okay, just recently as we're recording this, last weekend I guess was the Jake Paul Mike Tyson whatever the fuck that was. but
that's pretty much
but
everyone's reaction to that
Yeah.
fight. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The only good thing for me is it gave me my live stream on Facebook like over 1,000 hits. I'm like, "Okay, at least I got something out of it." But the talk out of all of that was the Taylor Serrano fight.
Hmm.
And everybody would like to see, myself included, would like to see a rematch of that. I remember a time where two women beating up on each other was kind of like, ugh. But
Yeah.
now it seems like that's changing a little bit to where people are starting to accept it a little bit more. Whereas, and it's not just because, again, I think most men, myself included, I'm just as guilty as this. When I think of two women beating each other up, it's kind of like, oh, but you're both angels. Like they're fucking women. Like, it's not, what does it matter that they're women fighting each other? There's no difference in men. But do you feel like the attitude is starting to swing a little bit more? Because again, I don't know if 10 years ago, if we saw that Serrano Taylor fight, um, we would have been as excited as a people to watch it or want to see a part two. But from the industry standpoint, do you feel like it's getting easier?
It definitely is. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, we've made a lot of progress in, it being more accepted. And that's one thing, like, I do see where people like men, don't want to see women out there fighting. But I think that is starting to change a little bit more just because, there are girls that are out there doing it and doing a good job, with it.
Yeah.
If we were all out there, fighting like cat fights, no, we would not be where we're at right now. But there are females out there that are putting on, packing the house,
Yeah.
and making it, something that people actually do want to see. So I think it just speaks volumes into, how women have been able to train and evolve into being good fighters, just plain and simple. Like we're good fighters. Not all of us are, but not all men aren't either, So it's like they're the fact that we're getting these bigger, I guess, like images in the sport, Christina Cyborg being one of them, and what she's been able to do. Valentina, I can never say her last name correctly, but our UFC 125
Yeah.
pound champ, like those females have really set the standard of like people actually want to watch that. They're not out there being boring fighters or anything like that. So I think that's really helped us grow, and in the sport, and people actually want to see it now.
Yeah, sure. And not only that, um, and I don't mean how this is going to sound, but I don't know how else to put it. I feel like sometimes people get in their own way, and one of the reasons why I don't like talking about politics is because it looks. If I say anything right now, half of the people watching this are going to turn it off, and I just
Mhm.
am like, there's no. But I think when women are a little bit more outspoken, they get hit twice as hard. Case in point, you have an innovator like Gina Carano who comes
Mm,
out and talks about her
yes.
political beliefs and is completely obliterated for it.
Yep.
I don't know if what she says is punished nearly as hard if it was a dude saying it. Sean
Yeah.
Strickland, case in point. Sean
Right.
Strickland
He can say
is in
whatever. Yeah.
he can say whatever he wants, however absurd it is, and he's going to sell tickets.
Yeah.
Gina Carano pretty much has said the exact same stuff and was ostracized for a while.
Right.
I don't understand that double standard. And when it comes about Molly, we're coming back to you on this. When it comes to what we talk about, well, from our scene anyway, and the challenges when it comes to women, I don't know one woman who is put in the same. There are so many talented women underground rappers. We talked about this in our episode as well. You talk
Mhm.
about Whitney Payton. You talk about Snow the Product, who's a little bit more mainstream, but even then, she's low tier mainstream because people look at her. Hey, she's a woman who can rap, not a rapper. She's a woman who can rap. How many people go, hey, that's a dude who can rap? Nobody's ever said that. But when we look at women rappers, that's what we say. Hey, it's a woman rapper. No, she's a rapper. She's not a woman rapper. She's a rapper. Um, and I see. Do you feel like let's just put it out there? Do you feel like there's a bias in underground music that there's a ceiling you can't break out of because of your gender?
Um, to a point, because I think there's just like certain amount of people who just are straight up are not interested in hearing a woman rap, or straight up aren't interested at all, and are just like, no, I just don't care. I just don't care for that.
Yeah.
And it would be the same with women fighters, where
Yeah.
they're just, no, I don't watch women's sports. I don't want to watch women play sports. Like why?
I was one of
What
them.
difference is
I'm not
it?
I'm not going to lie. I was one of them. I've always said if they
Boo.
introduced women's fighting into MMA, I was not going to watch.
Yeah.
And then I saw Ronda Rousey. She was on something called Strike Force Challengers. I think we talked about this, Chelsea. I
Yep.
saw Ronda's first professional fight on television, like her first major fight. She was the one that got me into it. I'm like, oh shit, okay, these are
Mhm.
actual fighters. So
Right.
hey, I'm just as guilty. So I get it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So I think like the more that we go from having women as just visual objects,
Yeah.
and like you said, Chelsea, like coming into the ring, half dressed, and
Mhm.
that's the point of it.
Yeah.
But the point of it is to be a good fighter, and to be talented at fighting.
Yeah.
And the same with hip hop is we can have put somebody on stage, and if all that you think is important is the image, and okay, there's a sexy woman and there, okay, so she can be this entertainer and be this rapper, but if she doesn't have the talent, the actual vocal talent and
Right.
entertaining talent, then it people aren't going to respect that. So
Mhm.
I think the more that we get uh, women that are super serious about what they're doing and trying to be the best at what they're doing, and not just phoning it in like, well, I'm going to be here and be pretty and that's good enough, you
Right.
know, the more respect that people are going to get for it and the more seriously they're going to take it as well. um, just across the board, like you kind of have to get to a point where you see that and you see these women fighting and you see them like talented and doing like
Mhm.
amazing, and well, people will be like, wow, like, oh, this is real, this is real, this is serious, this is,
Yeah.
it's not just for show, it's
Mhm.
not just a pretty picture, it's people actually
Mm.
doing it. So we're kind of getting more of that and more of that in hip hop as well, because you can definitely kind of tell when an artist is just propped up as somebody pretty, and there's really not much else behind it, or just sex appeal and there's really not much else behind it. How's anyone going to get into that their music
Mm-mm.
or want to listen to it if there's not really substance or feeling behind it? So I definitely like, I think it's going to get better and better as far as that goes, because we really do have women that are just determined to be the best and dominate and absolutely just be powerhouses at what they do, and we're gonna get that respect. We're gonna take that respect,
Yeah.
you know. And the more that people see it, the more normalized it'll be. So if you go to a hip hop show, and instead of there just being one like female artist on the whole show, maybe there's two, maybe there's three. There's just as many female artists performing as there are male artists performing. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where it's not like, oh my God, it's a woman on stage. You're going to get
Yeah,
over that,
right.
right? It's going to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
normalized, and the same with fighting as well. It's the more that you see women in the ring, and you like see that, and they're on the same card as Tyson Paul, and
Yep.
the more normalized it's going to be and the less people are going to think it's this, and I think that eventually we're going to get to that point. It's going to be pretty
Yeah.
good.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it was one of the reasons why I wanted to have this discussion is because like I'm not having a discussion with two other guys about the challenges men have in the industry. You know, the most challenge I've ever seen men have was again in Odd Bodies in Dayton. Uh I had walked in once, they were having a male review show and it was called Men of Steel. And the women in that building, holy shit. Like I said, I didn't work it. I did not work it. I walked in, I got what I came for. I walked right the fuck back out. So, because I have never seen a group of rabid Wolverines like the women in that building that
Yo,
day.
go to a strip club where there's a male stripper on. The
Yeah.
women at those places are mad, yo, and they're like, and they're very touchy, and like
Hmm.
it's
Right.
crazy, like
Yeah.
But
it's definitely,
even in that kind of an environment, like that's the place for it, right?
yeah,
And granted,
that's kind
I
of the point.
never, yeah, I never stayed in that environment very long, so I can't speak to that. But I can speak to what we've spoken to today so far, and the fact that it's a very real thing. And I hope people, when they watch this, they understand what we're saying. Um,
Mhm.
I'm sure there's going to be a couple comments I'm going to have to moderate because somebody immediately is not going to listen to the context of this and they're going to start talking shit. That's fine. I've got no problem with that. I'll deal with that when it comes. But it's just not right to it's not right for me to have some kind of a platform and not highlight this because I've seen it. Like I said, this is something that I want to discuss. So I appreciate both of you guys being as open as you were for the last hour that we've been talking. Again, like I said, before we say hit record, this is a very sensitive subject, but it's a very real one. And there's nothing more that I would like to see for it not to be the case, because it just feels like there's this stigma where what you wouldn't do to a dude is totally okay to do to a woman. And as Chelsea stated at the very beginning of this, it's not just men who are doing this, it's women doing it as well. So,
Mhm. Well, I'm interested, Chelsea. Just before we end things, there's one aspect of being a female in a male dominated field that we kind of didn't touch on, and I'm sure that this applies to you personally. Is how do you think like being a mother and being like female and having a family, being having taking time off of fighting to give birth and like how, do you think that that affects you and other female fighters as far as like career goes? Like do you think it kind of derails some of them from continuing with it?
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of females after they have babies, they are not coming back to the sport. Me for whatever reason, I always do. It's
Just-
just I
I
love
can.
the yeah, yeah. So I mean it definitely can take a knock on your career. But I value being a mother much more than being a fighter, if I'm being honest. Like I love the empowerment that being a mom gives me. So I'm willing to take that sacrifice on my career and be okay with it.
Yeah,
But this layoff will
that's
not be
awesome.
nearly as long.
Power to you. That's amazing. Like,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
so on that same topic, because again, this is we're talking about challenges of women in sports,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
On that same topic, does it and this is coming from a place of ignorance, 100% ignorance, because obviously I don't have to deal with childbirth, so this is something I don't know. Does it take that kind of a toll on your body to where after you have a kid, like, does it affect you to where you can't take that punch as easy as you could? You can't take that kick as easy as you once would. Is there, does that a real thing to where the toll on having a kid affects your fighting ability afterwards?
Yes, 100%. And I had heard, I think it was Joe Rogan, which I like Joe Rogan, but he had said something about Sarah McMahon having another kid and how it probably helped her body to take the time off to have a baby. And I'm like, it's the exact opposite. Actually, like your body goes through a lot. You have a whole bunch of hormone changes that you got to get your hormones back together. And then also the relaxin that your body, so like as you're pregnant, your body's producing all this relaxin, which is literally making your like ligaments and tendons stretch and be loose so your baby can go through your body to be delivered. And that's something like no matter what you do, you're not going to stop that from happening. That's just what women's bodies do. So you definitely do have, like, I remember coming back to training after having my second child and like just feeling like looseness like all over my joints, like I just felt like a noodle. So you got to kind of be careful with that, you know, like kicking and things like that. Your bones and stuff kind of like soften in a way because you're nourishing another human. And then like after you have the baby, if you choose to breastfeed, you know, like you also have all that, the different things that's going on hormonally with that you have to kind of deal with, which can be definitely a whole other factor that makes it a little bit more time consuming on being able to just bounce right back and like there was nothing that happened. So it
Yeah.
definitely does take a bit of a toll.
Yeah. This is why you tune into the Row Show, ladies and gentlemen, so you can talk about people being a little bit too touchy feely and breastfeeding in the exact same show.
Yes.
Yep. The joys of being a woman, yeah. No, I think one of the coolest
Oh,
things that I saw recently was a rapper, and there's a lot of like, you know, female artists, if they get pregnant, they'll just out of the scene until
Mhm.
they're, had their baby and they're back in shape, and then they're back on the stage doing their thing. But there's a rapper named Mona Leo, and she got pregnant and she just kept on rapping through the whole
Oh,
thing. She did music videos where she's got the big old belly and she's like knocking
that's
people out in this
amazing.
music video. And I was just like, yes. I'm like, this is so cool. When was the last
Yes.
time like you saw a pregnant chick up like on the mic? You know what I mean? So I
Yes.
thought that was neat. And then like having women in these male dominated industries, and we're getting, you get those different perspectives and you get that different aspect of the human existence that you're not getting
Yeah.
when it's just always guys all the time. So I
Yeah.
think it's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah.
And I'll put myself on blast because even what you just said, like I was like, why would she rap on stage? And then back of my mind immediately was like, why the fuck not? What the hell does it matter? But even on that same aspect as you just brought that up, Chelsea, a couple weeks ago, you posted a video of yourself training, and
Yeah.
we haven't talked about this so far since we've been recording, but you are, as of right now, very much
Yeah.
pregnant, and you were training while you were pregnant. And when I first saw that, I was like, and again, this is just me being ignorant. I'm putting myself on blast here. I was like, why the fuck would she be training while she's pregnant? And then the other side of my voice is like, dumbass, don't you think that she's done this before?
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, of course she knows what she's doing. But that's the ignorance. That's the ignorance of society. When we talk
Mhm.
about these things, there's no education on it. You think about somebody rapping on stage. Why would they do that? Why not? What's the danger in doing that? Chelsea
Yeah,
is a
Yeah.
professional fighter. She
yeah,
Yeah.
knows if she can train while she's pregnant or not. But there's not the problem is that there, and I'm not putting myself over here, but I pride myself on my ability to look at a situation and process it multiple times to see if my opinion is correct or not. Because of my hatred for hypocrisy, challenges me to do that. So I think about stuff like that. When I see Chelsea's video and she's training pregnant, I look at it multiple times and go, "Am I looking at this correctly?" And then again, immediately my brain goes, "Of course she knows what she's fucking doing." Not enough people do that. That if we all would just
Yeah.
take enough time, and that goes for everything, if people would
Everything.
take the
Yeah.
time to revisit their opinions and their thoughts and not
mhm,
just, oh God, fuck it, we're here. We're here. We've been talking basically borderline politics the entire time. So people would not have as much of an issue when it comes to differences of opinion if they would stop looking at themselves as infallible. If you would actually take a look at your own thoughts and your own opinions and challenge
Yeah.
them. And
mhm,
narcissists will say, "Oh, I do that all the time." No, you fucking don't, because I've known you for 20 years and your opinions on things have never changed. So how can you sit here and seriously say, hey, there's been times where I voted Democrat, there's
Yeah.
been times I voted Republican. I don't give a fuck about political affiliations. I don't at all. Never have, never will. And I will vote for who I think is going to do the best job. But there are people in my life who are hard one way or hard the other way. And it's all narcissism. That's all it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Nobody has the ability to sit down and actually process and think about some of the things that go through their head and goes, am I correct? Because a lot of the things that you both have dealt with would not happen if people had the ability to do that. But I digress. Let me get off my soapbox and we'll end it here.
I
But
totally agree with you though, and that's what makes it so hard to even like talk about this subject because like I know at points and times like I've been very like it has to be this way and then a few years later my opinion changes, but like you said some
yeah,
people just get so stuck in it has to be just that way,
yeah,
and I'm like, well, we'll see in 10 years how it is,
yeah.
like things can change. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm like I can be guilty of it myself as
Mhm.
well. Like, and I've been going off like, on the feminist kind of women empowerment, stuff for a long time, and I was really hardcore into it a long time ago, and then I kind of realized at a point I'm just like I'm being so hardcore about it that I'm alienating people I don't mean to, and
Yes.
making people feel like I don't appreciate you because you're a man, or I don't like you because you're a
Yes.
man, and it, like that was not the point of the whole discussion, and that's not the point of what we're doing now. But like I had to tone myself back and be like, okay, like girl, come on, like you have to accept that, things people do shitty things, and you don't have to let it color like everybody. Like, you don't have
Yeah.
to see everyone in that light. Like, so definitely it can go both ways for sure. But people just be open minded, and the good thing about getting more women in these areas is, again, we get the different perspectives, and we get to talk about these things that people don't necessarily hear about, and give them the chance to see that other side. Because
Yeah.
if you only hear the same opinions all the time, that's what you're going to believe. And if you don't get the chance to hear other voices and other perspectives, and that's what I want to bring to hip hop, and that's what I try and do, is just bring that other side and give people the chance to see things from a different light. And
Yeah.
hopefully that means eventually we'll all kind of have a better understanding of each other.
So, and I don't know. I don't know how to transition from here to the end. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys both the turn to shout out where people can find you, where they can follow you, all that stuff. But again, I want to say thank you guys both for taking the time to talk to me about something like this, and I hope people take it the right way. So, Molly, we'll start with you, and then we'll throw it over to Chelsea. Go ahead and tell people where they can find you.
All right. I'm on Instagram at Molly Gruesome. You can watch any of my music videos on YouTube, and just Molly Gruesome. Um, and yeah, I'm happy to talk to anyone, or interact or whatever. So hit me up. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on again. It's always good to chat with you. So very, very awesome as usual.
Absolutely, Chelsea.
I'm on Instagram at Chelsea Connor MMA, and then also on Facebook at Chelsea Connor. My nickname's Tiny Tank, so if you type that into Instagram or Facebook, you should be able to find me. And then also, like Molly said, a lot of my fights are on YouTube. So if you type in my name on YouTube, you can watch me on there too.
Well, guys, thank you guys so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you for having
Thank
us.
you.